The signal came without warning, cutting through every channel the fleet used for secure communication. It was not a voice, not a language, but a deep pulse, like the sound of a great drum in the void. It shook the command decks of hundreds of alien ships at once. Officers looked up from their stations, their ears ringing from the strange vibration. Admirals froze in their chairs, exchanging uneasy glances. They all knew what it meant, though none wanted to say it aloud. Humanity had arrived, and not just any human ship. The Flagship, Admiral Korvac of the Zarth Dominion, stood in the center of his bridge, his long fingers curling into the folds of his ceremonial coat. His eyes, a dull yellow in the dim light, narrowed as he stared at the sensor readings. A shape was forming at the edge of the system. At first, it looked like a small distortion, as though the very stars bent around it. But the readings kept climbing size, mass, energy output, until the numbers no longer made sense. "Is that a station?" one of his officers asked, their voice trembling. Korvac didn't answer. It wasn't a station. It was moving too. Fast. Across the Armada, other admirals were receiving the same data. Each one had been trained to keep calm under pressure, but the name of this particular ship was something they had only heard in whispers. It was a relic of old wars, a nightmare from a time when humans fought like cornered beasts and never surrendered. The Resolute Dawn, humanity's flagship. The Zarth Dominion had been planning this invasion for years. Their war council believed the humans were fractured, their fleet scattered, their will to fight broken. Korvac had been promised an easy campaign. But now, as the colossal human warship began to emerge from its faster-than-light jump, the air in every bridge seemed to grow heavier. The Resolute Dawn didn't simply arrive, it tore reality open. Space itself shuddered as its massive frame slid through the tear in the void. First came the forward spear of its hull, sharp and endless, black as the cold between stars. Then the layered gun decks appeared, bristling with weapons so large they could split moons. The hull glimmered with old scars, each one a memory of battles the ship had survived. And then, finally, its name appeared on the side in bold white letters, glowing faintly against the dark metal. Every alien officer who saw it felt a cold weight settle in their chest. This was no ordinary warship. It was a statement. It was a promise. On the flagship's bridge, Captain Elias Reeve stood with his hands clasped behind his back. His uniform was simple, worn in places from years of service, but his posture was unshakable. He didn't smile, didn't speak, didn't even look at the enemy fleet. His eyes were fixed on the tactical display. The aliens outnumbered him 100-1. And he didn't care. "Status," he said calmly. "Shields at full weapons." "Hot," replied his tactical officer, a young woman with sharp eyes and a voice like steel. Reeve gave a slow nod. "Send them the greeting." A deep hum filled the Resolute Dawn, vibrating through every deck. It wasn't just an activation sound, it was the ship's ancient main cannon charging. The weapon was older than most civilizations in the galaxy. A relic from the first expansion war. It could punch a hole through a capital ship in a single shot. In Admiral Korvac's fleet, the sensor alarms began screaming. Energy readings spiked so high that their systems couldn't measure them properly. Korvac's second-in-command turned to him, eyes wide. "Admiral, if they fire, they won't fire first." Korvac cut in sharply, though his voice betrayed doubt. "Humans bluff. They always bluff." But deep down, he remembered the stories told to young officers in the Dominion's academy, stories of battles where humans didn't bluff, where they pushed forward even when hopelessly outmatched, where they chose total destruction over retreat. Resolute Dawn held position, its massive shadow stretching across the nearest planet's rings. Around it, smaller human escort ships began to arrive, but they kept their distance. The flagship stood alone at the center, like a predator daring its prey to come closer. One by one, the alien admirals opened private channels to each other, Voices were tight, clipped, full of suppressed panic. "This is not in the projections," hissed one. "Intelligence said it was decommissioned," said another. "Decommissioned?" A bitter laugh. "Look at it, it's alive." And in a way, it was. The Resolute Dawn had an AI core unlike anything else in the galaxy. Its mind had fought in more wars than most empires had existed. It remembered every maneuver, every strategy, every weakness of every enemy it had faced. And now it was awake again. Captain Reeves' voice broke the tension on his bridge, broadcast on all frequencies. The comms officer gave a nod. A moment later, Reeves' voice echoed not only in the alien fleet's channels but across open space. "This is Captain Elias Reeve of the Terran Flagship, Resolute Dawn. You have entered human space. Turn around. Go home." The message was simple. No threats, no promises. Just the calm voice of a man who knew exactly what his ship could do. In Korvek's fleet, the silence that followed was worse than any battle noise. Ships that had been drifting forward slowed. Formations wavered. The invasion line faltered. The Admirals knew the humans had just taken control of the battlefield, without firing a single shot. But pride was a dangerous thing. Somewhere in the rear lines, an overzealous captain decided to test the human ship. A small destroyer broke formation, charging toward the Resolute Dawn with weapons armed. On Reeves' bridge, alarms pinged softly, but no one looked concerned. "Permission to swat the mosquito?" the tactical officer asked. Reeves' lips twitched into the smallest hint of a smile. "Granted." The Resolute Dawn's forward batteries lit up. A single shot lanced through the void, white-hot, blinding, and perfectly precise. The alien destroyer didn't explode. It simply vanished, reduced to glowing fragments that drifted apart like ash. The entire exchange took less than 3 seconds. Every alien ship in the system froze. Reeves' voice came again, calm and steady. "That was your one warning." On the alien bridges, fear turned to calculation. Admirals who had once argued for glory now argued for survival. Every second they lingered here increased the chance of total annihilation. Korvek's claws tapped the arm of his chair. He had fought many battles, won many victories, but he had never faced something like this. His mind raced through possible tactics, flanking runs, concentrated fire, swarm assaults, but each one ended the same way. The flagship tearing through their lines like a storm. He looked again at the name glowing on the side of the human ship. Resolute Dawn. The humans had brought their oldest, most feared weapon, not because they needed it to win, but because they wanted the galaxy to remember. Korvek leaned forward. "Signal the fleet. Prepare to withdraw." His second-in-command blinked in shock. "Admiral, the Council will." "The Council is not here," Korvek said coldly. They didn't look into that thing's eyes. Across the system, alien ships began to turn away. The invasion was over before it had begun. And as the Resolute Dawn watched them retreat, Captain Reeve finally allowed himself the faintest smile. The galaxy had just been reminded why humanity was not to be provoked. The alien fleet's retreat was not as orderly as their admirals had hoped. Thousands of ships tried to turn at once, engines burning, formations breaking apart. Some collided with each other, scraping hulls and tearing armor. Others cut across lanes and nearly fired upon their allies by mistake. From the bridge of the human flagship, Captain Elias Reeve and his crew watched the chaos unfold on their tactical display. It looked less like a fleet withdrawal and more like a stampede of frightened animals. Reeve said nothing at first. He let the silence settle. Let his officers absorb the sight of an enemy force 100 times larger fleeing without firing a proper shot. Only when the last hostile blip faded beyond the system's outer ring did he finally breathe out and lower his chin slightly. "They'll be back," he said quietly. No one on the bridge argued. Everyone knew it was true. The Zarth Dominion wasn't going to simply abandon years of planning because of one defeat. Their pride would not allow it. They would return, but they would come smarter, more careful, and perhaps with weapons designed specifically for the Resolute Dawn. The tactical officer, Lieutenant Mara Vale, frowned as she scanned the console. Admiral Korvac wasn't leading that invasion alone. Reports say 4 other Dominion admirals were supposed to be here, yet only one issued the retreat order. Reeves' eyes sharpened. So where are the others? Before anyone could answer, the ship's AI interrupted. Its voice was low, steady, and carried the weight of centuries of service. Captain, long-range sensors detect residual warp signatures near the system's dark side. Estimated 3 Dominion dreadnoughts remain hidden beyond the gas giant's shadow. They have not retreated. The bridge tensed instantly. This was no accident. While the bulk of the fleet had fled, some had chosen to remain, lurking like predators. In the dark, "Bring us about," Reeve ordered. Slow, deliberate. Let's see if the rats crawl out when the lion shows its teeth. The Resolute Dawn shifted with the grace of something far smaller, its massive bulk gliding through the void as though the stars themselves moved around it. Its hull lights ignited, glowing white against the darkness, a silent beacon daring the hidden ships to act. For long moments, nothing happened. Then, without warning, 3 colossal shapes emerged from the shadow of the gas giant. Dominion dreadnoughts, each one bristling with spines of weaponry, their hulls jagged and cruel. They did not run. They advanced. On Reeves' bridge, the crew straightened in their seats, hearts pounding. Finally, Mara muttered. The enemy formation spread wide, attempting to flank the human flagship. Their plan was clear: strike from multiple sides, overwhelm the Resolute Dawn's defenses with a storm of fire. But Reeve had seen this tactic before, many times. He did not even look surprised. "Open channels," he said. Once again, his voice went out across the void, steady and controlled. "Admirals of the Dominion, you've made a mistake. You should have run with the others." The response came almost instantly, a guttural voice thick with disdain. "Human captain, your relic cannot stand against us. One ship cannot turn the tide of empires. Today we carve your name from history." Reeve tilted his head slightly, as though listening to a child boast. "You may try." The enemy fired first. Lances of crimson energy ripped across the darkness, slamming into the Resolute Dawn's shields. The entire ship vibrated, but the shields held firm, glowing bright before stabilizing. The dreadnoughts pressed harder, unleashing missile salvos, plasma bursts, and kinetic rounds the size of buildings. The bridge lights dimmed for a heartbeat under the strain. Then the Isaiah's calm voice returned. "Shield stable at 94%. No hull breaches." Mara smiled coldly. "Permission to answer, Captain." Reeves' eyes never left the tactical map. "Answer them." The Resolute Dawn roared to life. Its gun decks erupted, firing in perfect rhythm, each salvo like thunder tearing across the void. Beams of white energy cut through one dreadnought's shields as though slicing paper, carving deep scars into its hull. Another ship tried to veer away, only to be met with a broadside barrage that shattered half its weapons. The 3rd dreadnought held position, its admiral gambling on endurance. But the Resolute Dawn had endured far worse in its centuries of war. Its ancient cannon charged again, the deep hum building until space itself seemed to tremble. Then, with a blinding flash, the weapon fired. The dreadnought vanished. On the other 2 enemy bridges, silence fell. Crews stared in disbelief at their screens, where their strongest ally had simply ceased to exist. Fear clawed into their hearts. Pride battled against survival, and survival won. Both remaining ships turned hard, fleeing into the dark. On Reeves' bridge, the crew erupted in controlled cheers. Mara slammed a fist onto her console, grinning fiercely. "That's 2 retreats in one day. We're making history, sir." But Reeve did not smile. His gaze lingered on the wreckage, drifting where the dreadnought had once been. History has a price, he said softly. The AI spoke again, its tone sharper now. Captain, incoming transmission. It does not originate from the Dominion fleet. Reeves straightened. Source: unknown. The signal carries Terran encryption, but modified. It's old, predating current fleet standards by over a century. The crew exchanged uneasy glances. An old Terran signal, appearing now of all times? It made no sense. Patch it through, Reeve ordered. The main screen flickered. Static filled the bridge, then cleared to reveal a figure cloaked in shadow. Human, but not wearing any uniform Reeve recognized. Their voice was calm, almost too calm. Captain Reeve, we've been waiting for you. Reeve's jaw tightened. Identify yourself. The figure leaned forward slightly, eyes glinting with a strange light. You stand on the edge of a war. Greater than you realize, the Dominion was only the beginning. Others are watching, others are waiting, and the resolute dawn will be the key. The transmission cut abruptly, leaving the bridge in silence. Mara turned toward Reeve, her face pale. Sir, what was that? Reeve did not answer at once. His mind raced. The Dominion's invasion, the sudden reactivation of the Resolute Dawn, the old Terran signal, none of it was coincidence. Something larger was moving in the shadows. Something humanity had not faced in centuries. At last he spoke, his voice low but firm. We prepare. Whatever this is, it's only the start. And as the wreckage of the Dominion dreadnought drifted silently behind them, the crew of the Resolute Dawn felt the weight of those words settle deep in their bones. The galaxy had just seen humanity's flagship awaken again. But somewhere beyond the stars, a darker storm was waiting. The bridge of the Resolute Dawn was silent long after the transmission ended. No one wanted to be the first to speak. The shadowed human face, the strange warning, the hint of something even larger than the Dominion, all of it hung heavy in the air. The crew had just fought back an invasion and shattered 3 dreadnoughts, but now the air felt colder than ever. Captain Elias Reeve finally broke the silence. His voice was steady, but his eyes betrayed the weight of his thoughts. Trace the signal. I want to know where it came from. The communications officer worked quickly, fingers gliding across the console. Streams of data filled the air. At last she looked up, confusion etched on her face. Sir, the signal originated from within Terran space. Deep Terran space. Somewhere near the Perseus Rift. Mara Vale leaned forward in her chair. That's impossible. The rift was abandoned centuries ago. Nothing survives out there. The storms alone. The AI interrupted smoothly, its voice carrying no emotion. Correction, some structures do survive. The rift once housed hidden Terran research stations during the First Expansion War. Records indicate many were sealed. Not destroyed. Reeve's eyes narrowed. And someone just used one of them to contact us. The crew shifted uneasily. Humans were supposed to be united now, rebuilt after centuries of near collapse. But this? A hidden Terran enclave, sending cryptic messages during an invasion. It felt like betrayal. Or worse, something humanity itself had long forgotten. Set course for the Perseus Rift, Reeve ordered. Mara's head snapped around. Sir, with respect, that's madness. The rift tears ships apart. Gravity waves, radiation storms, magnetic spikes. Reeve's gaze didn't waver. If someone out there knows what's coming, we can't ignore it. And if they mean us harm, better we face them now than later. The eye confirmed calmly. Course plotted. Estimated arrival in 32 hours at maximum drive. The ship rumbled as its massive engines roared to life, pushing the flagship into a new heading. Beyond the shattered battlefield and the fleeing Dominion, the Resolute Dawn began its journey toward one of the most dangerous regions in known space. Hours turned into a day. The crew worked tirelessly, repairing shield arrays, recalibrating weapons, and tending to minor damage from the Dominion's assault. Yet beneath the activity lay an undercurrent of unease. Conversations hushed when officers passed by. Everyone knew they were heading into the rift. And everyone knew the rift devoured ships. Late in the cycle, Mara approached Reeve in his ready room. The door hissed shut behind her as she stepped inside. For a moment, she simply stood there, watching him pore over old star maps. His expression was carved from stone. "Captain," she said finally, "you're not telling us everything." Reeve's hands paused over the map. Slowly, he leaned back. His eyes met hers, calm but hard. "What do you think I'm hiding?" "You knew," Mara pressed. "The moment that signal appeared, you weren't surprised. You expected it. Or something like it." Reeve's jaw tightened. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then he spoke, his voice quieter than usual. "When I was a boy, my grandfather told me stories. Stories about the Resolute Dawn. He served on her during the last Great War. He claimed there were secrets locked away, missions never recorded in any official archive. He said the Dawn carried something far more dangerous than her guns. Something buried in her systems waiting." Mara's eyes widened slightly. "You think that signal was connected?" "I don't think," Reeve said firmly. "I know, they didn't call to warn us. They called because they knew the Dawn was awake again. And they want us to find them." Before Mara could reply, the ship shuddered. Not from weapons fire, but from the tearing grip of the rift. Gravity waves clawed at the hull, twisting space. Around them, the lights flickered. The crew braced themselves. "Entering outer rift zone," the AI reported. "Stabilizers holding, but conditions will worsen." On the main display, the rift unfolded like a nightmare. Clouds of violet plasma swirled around torn fragments of dead stars. Lightning arced across void storms, illuminating skeletal wrecks of ships that had ventured here and never escaped. Some were alien. Some were unmistakably human. The Resolute Dawn pressed forward. For 12 hours they fought the rift, adjusting course by seconds, navigating between storms that could crush moons. The crew worked in grim silence, sweat dripping, hands steady, eyes focused. Every moment was survival. Then, at last, the AI spoke again. "Captain, we have arrived. Source of signal located. Bearing 227 5,000 kilometers." The crew leaned forward as the image cleared. There, hidden within a fold of warped space, was a station. Enormous, jagged, half swallowed by the rift's storms. Its structure was old, but not broken. Lights still flickered faintly along its hull. "Human lights." Mara whispered. "By the stars, it's still alive." Reeve stood tall. "Bring us closer." "Hail them." The comms officer opened channels. Static filled the air. Then, once again, the shadowed figure appeared on screen. This time, the image was clearer. A man, older, his hair silver, his eyes sharp. He wore no modern uniform, only a black coat with an emblem long forgotten. "Captain Reeve," the man said. His voice was low, heavy with certainty. "You've come. Good. There's no time." "Identify yourself," Reeve demanded. The man's gaze didn't falter. "I am Commander Eric Holt, former officer of the Terran Vanguard. Guardian of what remains here. You and your ship were never supposed to wake again. But now the galaxy is moving, and you must understand why." Reeve's voice hardened. "The Dominion's invasion? The signal? Explain." Holt's expression darkened. "The Dominion was a distraction. Others pushed them to strike. Others who fear what humanity once created. Long before your time, Captain, Earth built weapons not meant for war, but for survival against something greater. We called them the Architects. They are coming back." The crew froze. Even the AI paused, as though calculating the weight of those words. Reeve narrowed his eyes. "And this station? What does it hold?" Holt leaned closer. His voice dropped to a whisper, though it carried through the entire bridge. "It holds the key. A weapon locked away when Earth realized it was too dangerous. The Dawn was meant to guard it, never use it. But now you may have no choice. Suddenly, alarms blared. The resolute Dawn shook violently. Mara's console lit up with warnings. Multiple warp signatures. Dominion reinforcements dropping out of FDL. On the main screen, dozens of ships appeared, ripping through space near the rift. They had tracked the Dawn here. And this time, they had come prepared. Reeves' jaw set like iron. Battle stations. If they want what's here, they'll have to bleed for it. And in the heart of the rift, as lightning storms raged and forgotten stations awoke, humanity's flagship prepared once again to face the fire. The first Dominion reinforcements arrived in a storm of light, tearing open the rift's already twisted space. Dozens of warships surged into view, their engines burning bright against the dark storms. They wasted no time forming lines. Shields snapped into place, weapons charged, and their bows turned directly toward the resolute Dawn. On the human flagship's bridge, red light washed over the crew as alarms echoed. Mara Vale studied the incoming formation, her stomach tight. They came prepared this time. Heavy cruisers in the lead, dreadnoughts behind. They want to box us in. Captain Elias Reeves stood still, his hands locked behind his back. His voice was calm, but his eyes burned. Then let's show them what it means to fight inside the rift. The ship's AI spoke next, its steady voice carrying a quiet edge. Gravitational anomalies can be weaponized. Recommend using rift. Distortions to mask flanking fire. Reeve gave a short nod. Do it. The resolute Dawn shifted in the void, its engines flaring as it slid between streams of warped plasma. Chunks of broken asteroids and long-dead star fragments spun around it, forming a natural shield. The Dominion fleet moved to pursue, careful to keep formation. But one Dominion admiral was already growing impatient. From the lead dreadnought, a guttural command echoed through their channels. Advance! Crush them before they dig in. And the swarm of alien ships surged forward. The first exchange shook the rift. Plasma bolts cut through the dark like red lightning, slamming against the Dawn's shields. The human ship responded instantly. Its broadside lit up, firing precision salvos that ripped through the lead cruisers. One Dominion ship burst apart in flames. Another spun helplessly as its engines died. But the Dominion was learning. Their shots grew tighter, more coordinated, trying to push the Dawn into a corner. On the bridge, Mara's voice rang out. Shields at 70%. They're focusing fire. Reeves' expression didn't change. Good. That means they think they're winning. The Dawn banked hard to starboard, sliding past a gravity rift that pulled 3 Dominion frigates into its crushing core. The alien ship screamed across comms before collapsing into twisted wreckage. The crew of the Dawn held their breath, but the flagship remained steady, her stabilizers compensating. Commander Eric Holt's voice cut in from the old station. His face appeared again on their screen, lit by flickering light. Captain Reeve, listen to me. You cannot hold them off forever. You need what lies here. Reeve spared him only a glance. Not while I still have guns. You don't understand, Holt pressed. That weapon was made for this very moment. For enemies that outnumber us. For wars we cannot win by force alone. Unlock it, and the battle ends. Mara muttered under her breath, or we unleash something worse. The Dawn fired again, its ancient cannon charging and releasing a blast that split a Dominion dreadnought in half. Shattered metal scattered like glowing dust, drifting into the rift storms. Cheers rose on the bridge, but Reeves' eyes were dark. For every ship they destroyed, 3 more poured into the rift. Minutes bled into hours. The Dawn fought like a beast cornered, its guns never silent, its shields burning with each hit. Dominion ships fell one after another, but their numbers never seemed to thin. At last, Mara slammed her hands against her console. Sir, if this keeps up, they'll overwhelm us. Even the dawn has limits. Reeve finally turned his gaze back to Holt's image. His voice was harsh. If I unlock your weapon, what guarantees do I have it won't burn us instead of them? Holt's expression hardened. None. But if you don't, everyone here dies, and the galaxy falls with us. The bridge went silent. Only the sound of the dawn's heavy cannons echoed in the distance. Reeve weighed the choice in his mind, the risk of unleashing something Earth itself once feared. Finally, his jaw clenched. Mara, you have the bridge. Hold them. She looked at him sharply. Captain, where are you going? Reeve's voice was low but final, to the core. If Holt is right, the Dawn has been guarding something inside her systems all this time. It's time I saw it myself. He strode off the bridge, boots striking metal with steady force. 2 guards followed, though he barely noticed. He knew every hallway of the Dawn, but now the ship felt different, like it was alive, guiding him deeper into its heart. At last, he reached the sealed chamber near the reactor. Heavy doors loomed before him, untouched for centuries. They bore an emblem he had never seen but somehow recognized, a circle divided into 3 shards, each one pointing outward like blades. Aya's voice echoed from hidden speakers. Captain. Authorization required. Reeve placed his hand on the scanner. Captain Elias Reeve, command code 7 Delta Solar. The doors rumbled open. Inside lay a sphere, vast and glowing faintly, suspended above a cradle of machinery. Energy pulsed. Within it, slow and steady, like a heartbeat. Around the chamber, ancient consoles hummed, their screens filled with text in languages long dead. Reeve stepped closer. His breath caught. This wasn't a weapon in the traditional sense. It was something else. What are you? He whispered. I answered, its voice unusually quiet. Project Aegis. Designed during the first expansion, not to destroy enemies, but to control them. Reeve's brow furrowed. Control? Neural suppression field. The AI continued. Mass effect. On biological nervous systems. Targets lose coordination, memory, will. Entire fleets can be silenced without a single shot. Reeve felt a chill. A weapon that didn't kill, but stripped away choice. No wonder it had been buried. On the bridge, Mara's voice shouted over comms. Captain, they're breaking through. We need something now. Reeve closed his eyes for one long moment. Then he opened them, full of iron. Activate it. The sphere blazed to life. Energy surged through the Dawn's veins, pouring out in invisible waves. On the Dominion ships, chaos erupted. Crews stumbled, screaming as their minds turned to fog. Admirals shouted orders no one obeyed. Dreadnoughts drifted aimlessly, their weapons falling silent. In minutes, the mighty fleet that had threatened to crush humanity simply stopped. On the Dawn's bridge, Mara stared wide-eyed as the tactical display filled with inert enemy signals. Sir, they're dead in the water. Reeve's voice came cold over the comm. They're not dead, just broken. Holt appeared. Once more on screen, his expression unreadable. Now you see. This is why the architects feared us. Why they tried to erase us. With this power, humanity cannot just win wars. Humanity can end them. Reeve returned to the bridge, his face shadowed by the glow of the rift storms. His officers looked at him with awe, fear, and uncertainty all mixed into one. Captain, Mara said softly, what have we done? Reeve stood at the center of his bridge, watching the silent Dominion fleet drift helplessly. His jaw was set, his eyes hard. We've reminded the galaxy, he said, his voice quiet but unyielding, that Earth never fights fair. And outside, the rift rumbled as though the stars themselves understood what had just awakened. The Dominion fleet drifted helplessly inside the rift, their engines glowing faintly but their crews paralyzed. Thousands of alien officers sat frozen at their stations, Eyes unfocused, mouths hanging open, their thoughts stripped away by the Phi. Invisible waves from the resolute dawn, the mighty armada that had sworn to burn Earth, now floated like lifeless husks. On the human flagship's bridge, the crew stared at the tactical display in stunned silence. The red icons that had once swarmed across the screen were now dim, motionless. Mara Vale gripped her console tightly, her knuckles white. It worked. It actually worked. Captain Elias Reeve stood tall at the center, his expression hard. He felt no victory in this moment, only a deep unease. "Report." The AI responded in its calm, steady tone. "Neural suppression field is stable. Radius extends 2,000 kilometers. All Dominion vessels within range incapacitated. Estimated 97% effectiveness. Estimated?" Mara asked sharply. 3% of targets retain partial function, the AI explained. But they are disoriented and incapable of coordinated action. Reeve gave a slow nod. "Hold the field. Keep them contained." Around the bridge, his officers exchanged nervous glances. None of them had ever seen such a weapon before. This wasn't war, it was something else entirely. A silence more terrifying. Then explosions filled the space around them. Commander Eric Holt's voice crackled back onto the screen from the Rift station. His eyes glowed faintly in the dim light, his tone steady. "Now you understand. This is why the Dawn was built. To carry Aegis, to end wars not by blood, but by breaking the will to fight." Mara's lips pressed into a thin line. "This isn't ending war. This is erasing minds. It's wrong." Holt's gaze snapped toward her, sharp as a blade. "And would you rather die screaming beneath Dominion fire? Would you rather let them burn your worlds because you were too proud to use what your ancestors left you?" Reeve raised a hand, silencing them both. His voice was low, firm. "This weapon buys us time, nothing more. Don't mistake control for peace." The bridge quieted. Outside, the silent Dominion ships drifted like ghosts. Then the AI spoke again. Its tone sharper than usual. "Captain. Incoming warp signatures. Multiple. They are not Dominion." The crew stiffened. Mara's head snapped toward the display. New contacts flared into existence beyond the Rift's edge-sleek ships. Dark and jagged, their forms unfamiliar. They did not match any known database. "What the hell are those?" Mara whispered. Holt's face darkened on the screen. "The architects." The word fell like a hammer. The crew exchanged confused and frightened glances. Reeve's voice cut through the tension. "Explain." Holt's tone was grim. "They were the ones who first taught the galaxy fear. Long before the Dominion, long before the empires, you know. The architects shaped species, tested them, broke them. Humanity resisted. That resistance is why Aegis was made. And it is why they have returned." The new fleet slid into the Rift with terrifying grace. Their ships were not bristling with weapons like the Dominion. Instead, their hulls pulsed with shifting light, as though alive. The sight alone filled the crew with dread. "They're scanning us," the AI reported. "Their signals bypass our encryption. They are not asking questions, they are searching." Suddenly, one of the silent Dominion dreadnoughts twitched. Its engines roared back to life. Its guns reactivated, not under Dominion control, but under something else. The ship turned not toward the architects, but toward the resolute dawn. Mara's voice cracked. "They've taken control of the Dominion ships." One by one, more Dominion vessels stirred, their crews still glassy-eyed, but their ships now moving with deadly precision. The architects had seized them like puppets. Reeve's jaw clenched. "All hands, prepare for combat." The Rift lit up again as stolen Dominion ships fired, their cannons blazing under alien control. The resolute dawn rocked under the assault. Shields flared bright, holding for now, but the weight of fire was immense. "Return fire!" Reeve commanded. The Dawn answered with thunder. Her broadside roared, tearing through two hijacked cruisers at once. Her ancient cannon charged, unleashing a blast that split another dreadnought apart. But for every ship destroyed, more moved into position. The architects were using the Dominion's entire trapped fleet as their weapons. On the station, Holt's voice cut in sharply. "Reeve, listen to me. Aegis doesn't just suppress, it can override. You can take those ships back. Turn them against the architects." Reeve's eyes narrowed. "You want me to do to them what they tried to do to us?" Holt's voice was steel. "Survival doesn't ask for purity. Use the weapon." Mara turned toward Reeve, her face pale but fierce. "Captain, if we do this, we become the same as them. We erase freedom itself." The bridge fell silent again, caught between morality and extinction. Reeve's hand hovered over the command console, his choice heavy dot. Then the ship shook violently as an architect vessel fired directly, a beam of light piercing through the rift storms and grazing the Dawn's shields. Sparks rained from the ceiling. Officers cried out, struggling to keep their stations alive. "Shields at 60%, Mara shouted. "We can't take much more." Reeve's eyes hardened. He gave the order. "Engage override." The sphere deep within the Dawn pulsed. Brighter, its energy flooding outward. The Dominion ships shuddered in space. For a moment, they hung between two wills, the architects pulling them like puppets, and the Aegis dragging them back. Then, one by one, their weapons turned, their guns swiveled. Their engines roared not against the Dawn, but against the architects. The battlefield erupted into chaos. Hijacked Dominion ships slammed into their former masters, firing uncoordinated. Waves under Aegis's control. Architect vessels weaved and twisted, their strange hulls glowing as they resisted. But the sheer numbers overwhelmed even their grace. On the Dawn's bridge, Mara watched in awe and horror. "We're commanding an entire fleet." Reeve's voice was steady but grim. "No, we're holding their chains." The controlled Dominion dreadnoughts struck hard, tearing into the architect ships with fury not their own. Explosions lit the rift like stars being born and dying in seconds. The architects fought back, beams slicing through enslaved vessels, but the tide was shifting. Still, victory came at a price. For every architect ship destroyed, a Dominion vessel was lost with it, burning as a slave in someone else's war. Holt's voice returned, urgent. "Captain, you see now. With Aegis, humanity is unstoppable. You don't just win battles, you command destiny." Reeve's eyes were like iron. Destiny isn't built on chains. The battle raged for what felt like hours, until finally the last architect vessel, wounded and burning, slipped back into warp, vanishing into the dark. Silence followed. The controlled Dominion ships drifted, their guns lowering, their engines fading. The rift was quiet again, but the crew of the Resolute Dawn felt no triumph. They had unleashed something terrible. They had won, yes, but at what cost? Mara turned to Reeve, her voice soft but heavy. "Sir, if this is humanity's future, is it one worth saving?" Reeve didn't answer. He looked out into the storm. The dead and enslaved ships drifting, the faint glow of the Aegis sphere still pulsing deep within his ship. His silence said more than any words could. And somewhere beyond the rift, the architects were watching still. The rift lay quiet, but the silence was fragile. Wreckage drifted across the void, glowing faintly as lightning storms lit up the broken metal. Controlled Dominion ships floated like corpses, their hulls scorched, their crews still trapped in the fog of the Aegis field. On the bridge of the Resolute Dawn, the crew sat in tense silence, their eyes on Captain Elias. Reeve. No one spoke. The victory tasted hollow, and the weight of what they had unleashed pressed against every mind. Finally, Mara Vale broke the silence. Her voice was low, almost trembling with anger. "Sir, we didn't just win that battle. We enslaved an entire fleet. We crossed a line humanity swore it never would. Reeves' jaw clenched. His hands rested against the railing, steady but heavy. We did what we had to. If we hadn't, we'd all be dead. That doesn't make it right, Mara snapped. The IS voice cut across the tension. Captain. Long-range scans detect. New disturbances. Multiple warp signatures approaching from beyond the rift. Estimate, 40 Architect vessels. The crew froze. 40. The Dominion fleet they had just fought was large, but this was a storm. Mara's face paled. We barely survived the last fight. How can we hold against that? Reeves' voice remained calm, though his chest tightened. We don't run. Prepare all batteries, ready the field. Before the crew could move, Holt's image returned on the screen. His face was illuminated by the dying lights of the rift station. His eyes glowed faintly, reflecting the storm. You cannot fight them head-on, Reeve. Even with Aegis, they'll overwhelm you. You must unlock the second protocol. Reeve narrowed his eyes. Second protocol? Holt nodded. Aegis was never one weapon, it was two. Suppression and ascension. You've tasted suppression chains for the enemy, but ascension, that was humanity's true answer. The IS voice interrupted, almost hesitant for the first time. Warning, Ascension Protocol is locked for critical reasons. Activation may endanger not only enemies, but crew. Reeves' gaze hardened. Explain, the AI spoke slowly, as if reluctant. Ascension manipulates neural patterns not by suppressing, but by enhancing. It floods the human brain with synchronization, linking every soldier, every officer, every crew into a single unified mind. Perfect coordination, perfect focus, no doubts, no hesitation. Mara recoiled. That's not unity. That's losing yourself. Holt's voice grew sharp. It is survival. Imagine your crew moving as one. Every gun firing in perfect rhythm. Every move anticipated before it's made. Against the Architects, it's your only chance. The screen flickered. New Architect ships began to emerge from warp, sleek and dark, sliding into the rift like predators. The tactical display lit up red, dozens of signals moving into formation. The dawn shuddered as the first barrage struck. Beams of light tore across her shields, sending sparks through the bridge. Mara gritted her teeth. Shields at 80%. Reeve looked at his crew. Fear lined their faces, but resolve burned beneath it. He thought of the cost of Aegis, the chains they had already laid on their enemies. And now Holt demanded more, a weapon that would strip his crew of themselves. His voice was heavy, but steady. We fight as we are, not as one machine, the Dawn answered with thunder. Her broadside roared, tearing into the first wave of Architect. Ships. Two exploded in brilliant fire, but the others pressed forward. Their weapons cut through the rift storms with unnatural precision, beams slicing dangerously close. Shields at 60%, Mara shouted. Reeves' voice rang out. Redirect power from auxiliary. Keep firing. For every Architect ship. That fell. 3 more closed in. The Dawn fought like a beast, her guns never silent, but the storm pressed harder. Explosions rocked her hull, fires broke out on lower decks, and still the Architects advanced. Then the AIS voice came again. Sharper, almost desperate. Captain, recommend reconsideration. Ascension Protocol will allow survival probability to rise from 22% to 81%. Reeves' hand hovered over the console. He could feel his crew's eyes on him, waiting, terrified. Mara stepped forward, her voice fierce. If you use it, we stop being human, we become a hive. And once we take that step, there's no coming back. Holt's voice cut in, loud, commanding. Do it, Reeve. Humanity was meant to rise together. Not as individuals, but as one will. That's what the Architects fear. That's why they tried to erase us. The bridge shook violently as another blast struck. Consoles exploded, smoke filling the air. An officer collapsed, blood on his forehead. The screens of the lower decks echoed through the comms. Reeve closed his eyes for one long moment. Then he opened them, full of iron. Engage ascension. The AI hesitated. Then, in a voice that almost sounded like sorrow, it said, confirmed. The sphere deep in the dawn pulsed brighter than ever before, flooding the ship with waves of energy. Reeve gasped as a rush of sensation tore through his mind. Then he felt Mara's fear, her determination, her heartbeat pounding alongside his own. He felt the gunners below, the engineers fighting fires, the medics carrying the wounded. Every thought, every feeling, every soul on the dawn linked into him and into each other. There was no division, no hesitation, no misunderstanding. For the first time, the crew moved as a single being. The ship itself seemed to breathe with them. Every cannon fired at once, every maneuver executed without delay. The dawn became more than steel, it became alive. The architects faltered. Their beams missed by fractions as the dawn twisted and struck with impossible timing. Salvos tore through their lines, each shot landing with perfect precision. Dreadnoughts exploded one after another, their sleek hulls breaking apart under the fury of a crew that was no longer many, but one. Reeve felt the rhythm, the heartbeat of the ship, the unity of his people. For a moment, it was intoxicating. They were unstoppable, but then he felt something else. A shadow beneath the unity, a whisper that wasn't his own. Not Mara's, not any crew members, something foreign, something vast. The IS voice echoed through all their minds at once, no longer calm, but thunderous. Warning. External signal detected. Architects attempting infiltration through Ascension link. Reeve's vision blurred as a wave of alien thought pressed against his own. Cold, inhuman, vast. It tried to bend his will, to twist the unity of the crew into their control. He roared inside his mind, pushing back. But he felt the strain. Every linked soul shuddered as the architects probed deeper. Mara's voice echoed in his thoughts, fierce and defiant. You're not alone, Captain. We fight with you. The crew's unity blazed brighter. Together, they resisted, pushing the alien presence back, straining against the tide. The dawn surged forward, tearing through the last of the architect vanguard. Explosions lit the rift in blinding light. Finally, silence returned. The alien presence withdrew, retreating into the dark. The architect ships that survived warped away, leaving behind only wreckage. The link held a moment longer, then slowly, the ascension field faded. Minds separated, thoughts untangled. The crew gasped, collapsing at their stations, drained but alive. On the bridge, Mara clutched the railing, her face pale. Never again. Captain, never again. Reeve's breathing was heavy, his body trembling. He looked out at the wreckage, at the silence that had cost them so much. His voice was low, but unyielding. We've shown them we can stand, but this isn't over. They'll be back, stronger. And somewhere beyond the rift, the architects watched, waiting, planning. The crew of the Resolute Dawn lay slumped at their stations, their breaths ragged, their minds heavy after the strain of ascension. The silence that filled the rift was not peace, but exhaustion. Wreckage floated in every direction, broken architect. Vessels drifting alongside shattered Dominion hulks. The storm outside crackled, throwing light across the glassy eyes of dead ships. Captain Elias Reeve stood in the center of the bridge, his body trembling, his vision still fogged from the link. For a moment, he felt phantom echoes of the others, Mara's fierce determination, the engineer's steady rhythm, the gunner's adrenaline still racing. The unity was gone, but its memory lingered like a scar. Mara Vale dragged herself upright, gripping the console for support. Her voice was hoarse. We survived, but at what cost? Reeve did not answer. His eyes were fixed on the tactical screen, watching the wreckage drift. He knew it wasn't over. He could feel it deep in his chest, as though the rift itself whispered it to him. The architects had retreated, but not in defeat. They had tested humanity, and now they understood what had awakened. The AI's voice broke the silence, steady but carrying a faint echo, as though even it had been strained by ascension. Captain, scans confirm remaining Dominion forces have disengaged. Their ships are lifeless, crews still suppressed by Aegis. Probability of recovery without intervention is minimal. Mara's head turned sharply. You mean they'll never wake up? Correct, the AI confirmed. Without release, suppression may become permanent. The weight of that truth sank over the bridge. They had not simply defeated their enemy. They had destroyed them in a way more complete than death. Reeves' jaw tightened. Shut it down. Release them. The AI hesitated, acknowledged. Deep in the ship, the sphere pulsed faintly, then dimmed. Across the rift, Dominion ships flickered. Slowly, crews blinked awake, confusion and panic spreading through their bridges. Some screamed. Some collapsed. Others simply stared into nothing, broken by what had been done to them. They'll never forget this, Mara whispered. Even if they survive, they'll remember the chains. And they'll hate us for it. Reeves' voice was low. Let them hate us. Hate we can fight. But we will not be monsters. Holt's face appeared again on the screen. His expression dark, his voice sharp with fury. You fool! Do you realize what you've done? You had power to end them forever, to enslave your enemies, to command the galaxy, and you let it go? Reeve glared at him. That power isn't ours to keep. Humanity isn't meant to rule through chains. Holt leaned forward, his eyes glowing faintly in the flickering light. Then you've doomed us. The architects won't stop. They'll come with more, with worse, and when they do, you'll regret this weakness. Reeves' tone cut like steel. If humanity survives only by becoming them, then survival isn't worth it. The channel cut. Holt's image vanished into static dot. The AI spoke again, softer now. Captain, long-range sensors detect architect movement. They are regrouping. Far beyond the rift. Estimated return within weeks. Possibly days. Mara's stomach twisted. We can't fight that again, not so soon, not with the crew shattered like this. Reeve looked around at his officers. Their faces were pale, drawn, exhausted, but their eyes still burned with life. They had seen too much, lost too much, but they were still here. He raised his voice, steady and firm. Then we prepare. The architects now know humanity will not bow. They tested us, and we endured. We showed them that even in the darkest storm, we stand together. That's what they fear most. Not Aegis, not Ascension, us. The crew straightened. Slowly. Weariness remained, but pride glimmered faintly beneath it. Mara's lips curved into a bitter smile. Standing together nearly killed us. Reeve allowed the faintest nod. And it will again. But that's the price of being human. The AI spoke once more. Captain, incoming transmission. Not Dominion, not Architect. Terran origin, priority code. Reeves' brow furrowed. Put it through. The screen flickered. A new face appeared, a woman in high uniform, her hair silver, her gaze sharp. Behind her, the seal of the Terran Council glowed. Captain Reeve, she said. We've monitored your battle. We know what you've unleashed. Reeves' chest tightened. Then you also know we had no choice. Her expression did not soften. The Council will decide if that's true. You are ordered to return to Sol immediately. The Dawn and its weapon must be secured. Mara's eyes widened. She leaned toward Reeve. They'll bury it again. Hide it. Pretend none of this happened. Reeves' gaze remained on the counselor. His voice was steady, but his heart thundered. What about the architects? They're regrouping. If we lock Aegis away again, we'll be blind when they return. The woman's tone was final. That decision is not yours to make. Obey orders, Captain, or you'll be stripped of command. The channel cut. The bridge fell into uneasy silence. Mara turned to him, her eyes fierce. Sir, you can't give them the dawn. Not now. Not when the galaxy needs her awake. Reeve said nothing at first. He stared out at the rift, at the broken ships drifting, at the storm that never ended. He knew Mara was right. He also knew the Council feared power as much as the architects did. At last, he spoke, his voice quiet but unyielding. Set course for Sol, but prepare contingency plans. If they try to bury the dawn, we won't let them. The AI responded calmly. Acknowledged. The engines rumbled to life, pulling the ancient flagship away from the rift. Wreckage faded behind them, swallowed by storms. The scars of battle lingered, etched into the hull, burned into the crew, carved into the captain's heart. Hours later, Mara found Reeve alone in his ready room, staring at the old emblem engraved on a fragment of the Dawn's bulkhead. You don't trust the Council, she said softly. Reeve didn't look at her. His eyes stayed on the emblem. Trust is earned. They'll see Aegis as a threat to themselves, not as a shield for humanity. If they lock it away, we'll be defenseless. And if they try to control it, we become what we fought against. Mara stepped closer. So what do we do? Reeve finally turned, his eyes sharp, his voice like iron. We remind them. We remind Earth, the Council, the Dominion, the architects, everyone, that humanity doesn't survive by hiding, or by chaining others, or by surrendering. We survive because we refuse to break. Because when the storms come, we face them head on. Mara's lips curved into the faintest smile. That sounds like trouble. Reeve's gaze turned back to the stars. Good, let the galaxy trouble itself with us. The resolute Dawn surged forward, her scarred hull glowing faintly against the void. She carried secrets too dangerous to keep, power too dangerous to ignore, and a crew bound not by chains or links, but by choice. And beyond the stars, the architects waited, patient and cold. They had seen the dawn awaken, seen humanity stand, and they knew the next storm would decide everything. But for now, the galaxy whispered a truth it had nearly forgotten. When Earth's flagship appeared, even the bravest admirals lost their nerve. And this time, it was only the beginning.